Oh shit. Hello guys, it's 899 here and welcome to today's video where we're going to be going through our tips and predictions for round 3 of the 2024 NRL season. And to say this is a big round, bit of an understatement. Without further ado, let's go into it. Starting off on Thursday, we have the grand final rematch where it's the Penrith Panthers hosting the Brisbane Broncos. Now obviously, just as I mentioned about 10 seconds ago, this is the grand final rematch from last year where the... Oh, sorry, I'm not allowed to talk about it because there's sort of a... No, there isn't a ban. Shut up. Well, apparently there isn't, but they're not talking about it. So let's move on. Going into this match, the Brisbane Broncos have got several key players out. Payne Haas is out and Adam Reynolds, I believe, is injured. So this is looking to be a very smooth sailing match, you'd think, for Penrith. But the season has been a little bit weird so far to start. But yeah, Penrith are all firing against Parramatta, especially in that second half where they kind of just closed them all down and really just went on them. Like Isaac Targa had a brilliant match. Brisbane still did good last week against the Bunnies, but I feel like this is just an entirely different beast altogether. And I'm going to say that I think the Panthers should be able to get the job done. Now we go into the Friday matches, and at 6 p.m. in Christchurch, we have got, honestly, genuinely another tasty match. You've got the New Zealand Warriors hosting the Canberra Raiders. Now, the Warriors pretty much had the game won last week, but then what I'd like to call some tomfoolery happened. And the Canberra Raiders are 2-0 to start the season after somewhat easily dismantling the Tigers last week in Canberra. But because the Warriors have been in these really close games, this is going to be a real test for Canberra to see how they measure up in terms of some of the better teams in the comp, despite the Warriors being in the bottom 4 because they haven't won yet. I think it's rumoured that Sebastian Kris could be out for Canberra, which I think is going to be potentially a sizable loss, but Canberra really developed a side where they can just, not saying like Penrith, but it's like they, have a cogs and they put players into the right spots, I know it sounds simple, but you'd be really surprised how teams can't do that. But I do think this is where the Warriors do step up in this instance. I think Wade Egan's set to be named, so should be good for them. So I'm going to say I think the Warriors should be getting their first win on Friday. If not, then Canberra, I reckon if Canberra win in round on Friday, you can probably class them as, they're going to be a top 8 team. And now Friday 8 p.m. we go to possibly the biggest game of the round, purely because it's the old rivalry, one of the oldest ongoing in the Australian Rugby League. It is the Sydney Roosters and the South Sydney Rabbitohs. The Rabbitohs were in it for a little bit against Brisbane last week, but Brisbane just showed off their class, and I think some of their players being missing kind of reflected on their performance. The Roosters look to be going all right with Manly, but Manly just kind of outplayed them, and it was a really good performance by Manly just to sort of shut the Roosters down a little bit. Dominic Young got his first try for the Roosters, so happy for him. Going into this match, just obviously South Sydney is second last because they haven't gotten a win yet, but I genuinely feel this is probably going to be one of the closest matches we have this year. I reckon Golden Point's going to happen. You got a bunch of players out for both sides. I think Luke Keary's out due to concussion. You still got a bunch of Souths players who are going to be out. Jack Whiten will make his debut this week after his suspension from last year for was it Tyson Gamble? And this match is going to be unbelievably close. And honestly, I'm actually considering going to this. So we'll see what happens with timing and whatnot. We could be getting a vlog of this. But going into this match, I think like I said earlier, this is going to be really close. But I do think the Roosters should be able to get the job done. It'll be I think genuinely probably 1 or 2 points will be the difference here. Now we go into the Super Saturday matches, and at 3 p.m. we head to Belmore as the Bulldogs take on the Titans. Obviously, the Bulldogs were in sort of pretty close contention with the Sharks last week, but they only really sort of had like an overall advantage when the Sharks were down to 12, and just ever since they came back, the Sharks, especially in the second half, just smothered them. And obviously, the Titans are coming off a bye from last week. And this is going to be a very interesting match because these are like, for teams that obviously the two teams want to do something this year, this is the types of matches you just have to win. In terms of potential naming, there hasn't been that much news. I do think this actually will be probably another one that's going to be pretty hard to tell. I think you could kind of toss a coin in terms of how you think team players could go. For me personally, I think it's tough, but I'm going to go and say I think this is where the Bulldogs pick up their first points of the season and get the win, but I think it's going to be an ugly match in terms of me personally. Now we go into the 5:30 match on Saturday, and it is the St George Illawarra Dragons up against the North Queensland Cowboys. The Dragons, they got belted by the Dolphins, 38-0. Last week, and the Cowboys didn't have the best performances, were just able to get the job done against the Knights. So the Cowboys 2-0 to start the year, which is good for them. And this is a match that a lot of people probably should expect them winning. It's gonna be sort of tight because I don't know what type of Dragons team is going to come out and play. It's either the Dragons are just going to come out of absolute nowhere and just absolutely blitz a team like they did with the Titans, or they're just going to get absolutely their shit caved in like they did against the Dolphins. I just have to go really with the favourites. Really, I'm going to say that the Cowboys should win this. If not, then there is a few questions that could be asked. But yeah. Now we go into the final match on the Saturday, and it is the West Tigers up against the Cronulla Sharks at Leichhardt Oval, or Lilyfield Rectangle if you want to be specific and pedantic like me, because I am a twat. The West Tigers, obviously in their first match last week under Benji Marshall, had some good moments, but just really weren't that much in it as they lost by 20 points. And the Sharks, they were a bit scrubby in places last week against the Bulldogs, but they were able to get the job done and get the victory. This really should be a win for Cronulla. Usually when it comes to the Sharks, when they are going well in matches, it's either one or either side. That goes really well. Like last week you saw it was like Mulatalo and like Talakai. So I reckon this week if you want to tip for anytime try scorers, go for Sione Katoa and Jesse Ramian, because that's usually how it works. But I do think the Sharks should be able to win this match pretty easily. Now we go into the Sunday 4 p.m. kickoff, and we have, honestly, another belter of a match. There's been a few belters this round, as we've got the Parramatta Eels taking on the Manly Sea Eagles. Obviously, Parramatta very much in it against Penrith last week. Were leading at half-time, but just the second half just killed them. And the Manly Sea Eagles 2-0 to start the year after getting a decent win over the Roosters at home. This is going to be a really good match, because this is going to be a match that will prove if Manly are genuine contenders for I don't think they are contenders for the top 8, but this could be like where you start asking the serious questions about them. Yeah, and I think it's going to be a tight match. You've also got Parramatta, who will show up on the day. It is at home. I think this is also another match that could, if it really wanted to, go to Golden Point. I'm going to say Manly going to win. I'm going to have full faith with Manly, and I think they're going to get the job done. And finally, the final match of the round, it takes us to Newcastle, as the Newcastle Knights will take on the Melbourne Storm. Now, there has been a lot of news in terms of what the potential team list is going to be. The Newcastle Knights, about 30 minutes ago was announced, Jackson Hastings has been dropped. I'm not even kidding. He's been dropped to the New South Wales Cup, which will likely mean that Jack Cogger will be getting his first start with the Knights, which I know a lot of people have been calling for. He should have been starting this season, but now we're going to finally see it. And I think it does kind of make sense, because Cogger was sort of like the main player who was making things done while against the Cowboys last week, getting the 2 tries for Adam Elliott. The Melbourne Storm obviously 2-0 to start the year. getting a very good win. But they're now going to be out their 2 playmakers. Obviously, you had Cameron Munster, who's been out for the last couple of weeks after a slip in the shower. And it has also been named that Jerome Hughes will be out because of his him making contact with a referee, which I think is kind of unavoidable. But anywho, actually, in terms of the tipping, the Knights are the favourites. But I do think the Knights are playing better, speaking as a Knights fan. If you want to see how I've talked about for the last 2 rounds, you can go click here, or I don't know how they do the layout now. But yeah, I'm going to say that I don't think there's really that much of an indicator that the Knights are going to win this. So on paper, I'm going to say that I think Melbourne should get the job done. If not, then we're back. We're so back. That's going to be the end of the video. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Who do you have for round 3? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you all later.